Okay, Dad, today is Wednesday, May 3rd. And I think you know what I'm going to ask you about. We got to talk about this anti Semitism bill.
Uh-huh.
I saw Twitter blowing up last night, people saying that it's illegal to be Christian or illegal to say that the Jews killed Jesus. And
Yeah.
how much of this is just hyperbole and
Okay.
how much
Well,
of this is actually a real deal? Are we, you
it,
know,
it's yeah, I would say those statements are hyperbolic, but they are. But the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that was recently passed by the Senate, it was going to the Senate now, as I understand. It was passed by the House, I think 210 to 93. So there was some dissent, but it was still passed with a strong majority, bipartisan
does it
majority.
just have to have a majority? Giving me a basic
Yeah.
civics lesson here.
Okay.
So,
Well, there.
is it two-thirds majority
Okay. It
from
actually
here?
depends on the bill, and I don't always know what the distinction is. Sometimes 2/3 is required. Sometimes it's just a simple majority. I should know better than that, but that's. I think in this case, I think in most cases for bills, it's like to override a veto. I think you have to have 2/3. In this case, it was a simple majority, so it passed. Overwhelmingly. Again, there was some dissent, 92, and I think it came from both sides of the aisle. Um, But I actually read the bill, and there's not much to it. It actually doesn't really introduce anything new. But what it does is kind of put a spotlight on, um, let's say, the civil rights regulation of university campuses in this country. I mean, already there had been efforts to there was already an understanding that anti-Semitism was part of what they regulated. They're supposed to monitor these campuses, and if there's evidence of some sort of systemic racism or whatever, the campus receives a warning. If they don't comply, then they can lose federal funding, right? And then there have actually been efforts, and it's been made explicit in the past that anti-Semitism is part of what they're supposed to be monitored. So this really doesn't do anything new. It just kind of shines a spotlight on it. It just says, I think it's basically a message that's being sent to um, universities across the country that, hey, we're watching you, and you better crack down on these people, or you might lose your funding. I
Mm.
mean, I think that's really what it is. So to say that, okay, it's illegal to do this, illegal, that's not really true. But if you are on a campus, you're a student on any one of these campuses, you've got an administration that's scared to death of offending, the Congress and their donors, and they are going to be looking, for any excuse to crack down on you. They're going to, and we've seen it happen, of course, recently. They're very violent crackdowns on the
Well,
protests.
so is the administration calling in the local police department to crack it down? Like, how's that working? I
Well,
mean,
no, it's not so much that. Well, you can think about this. Actually began before the passage of the act. We had those university administrators were called to appear before Congress,
mm,
and they were dressed down. It was absurd. They were accused of anti-Semitism and so on and so forth. And I think virtually all. I know there was University of Pennsylvania, Harvard. Now those two presidents that were called for, they're already gone. I can't remember what the third one was or the fourth. Um, but yeah, they had the fear of God put into them. And then in
so
the case of I
yeah,
just want to add something very quickly for the University of Pennsylvania president. There was also a major donor, a Jewish Zionist donor that had, given something like $100 million to the university. He threatened to withdraw his support from the university if they didn't continue to allow um, pro-Palestinian demonstrations and speech and so forth. And so, yeah, this president, who apparently wasn't obedient enough to the donors and to Congress, had to resign.
so when you say had to resign,
Yeah,
like
just under pressure. She
under
was told that
pressure,
she had to go. I
but
mean,
if
because
she
she could.
said no, what would have happened? Like, what?
Well, she could have been fired. The board could have removed her. I think that's what she saw. The writing was on the wall. She was actually looked like she was trying to bend over backwards, but it was too late.
Mm. So basically, what's happening is there just going to be a lot of pressure on these administrations to just clamp down on these protests
Right.
and speech. But does the bill itself actually define what anti-Semitism is?
Well, it
Like, do
does. It
we?
brings up something. It's a definition that's been used before, and it just again kind of restates it. that it uses. There's an organization called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. We'll just say that it's the IHRA, and they have a working definition of anti-Semitism. I think they came up with it in like 2018, something like that. And it's been adopted by the U.S. government and by many governments around the world. And I went and took a look at it. It has, I mean, there's like the first thing they list is the one I think most people would agree with. It's just simply that it's wrong to call for violence against Jews as a people, or to aid, to facilitate violence, or whatever. And not talking about the state of Israel or anything, but Jews as a people. But a lot of it goes way beyond that. One thing is just simply, for example, is anti-Semitism would be the claim, for example, that Jews control the media or whatever. This is, the thing is, you get into questions of fact. And we've talked earlier about how the leading donors for both parties are actually Jewish Zionists. And that's just a fact. And so are you going to point out this fact? Are you an anti-Semite? Okay. Maybe it's a little bit go too far when somebody says that the Jews control the media or the Jews control the parties. Right. But you say that there's very, obvious and, extensive and powerful Jewish influence on the political parties and on the media. That you can support with facts.
Would that be considered anti-Semitic?
I think it would be. I mean, it's just the thing is that the language is, because, the people will say, well, that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. You're saying the Jews control the media, and the thing is, if somebody says maybe something that's not 100% true, or, he says it's implying it's 100% when in fact it's 78% or something, well, why should we be policing, shades of meaning like this? This is, it's obviously a real intrusion into free speech and free thought.
So pointing out, for example, that the majority of our politicians are on the payroll of the Israeli lobby, is that anti-Semitic?
Yeah, according to this, it is. I mean, you could have a really strict reading and say, well, that's not as considered. But when you look at the way that it's been applied, no question about it, that would be considered anti-Semitic. And then criticism of Israel and its policies, that just becomes considered anti-Semitic. That's.
And so is it actually, who gets in, if I start stating these things, which we are stating them, this is part of our podcast, we talk about what's happening,
right.
If I'm just are we in trouble?
No.
Or is it
not yet anyway. I mean, we're already at risk, completely. You set this whole Anti-Semitism Awareness Act aside, and the recent going-ons in campus. Well, we already are at a certain risk because people who say these things do become targets of, the ADL and get shut down. They get deplatformed. So yeah, we are at risk. This doesn't really make a difference. This is something that's really just applies to
universities.
Campuses. Universities and the students there. I think they're clearly at much greater risk. It's just it's just like they've ramped up the enforcement, the policing of speech in those places. But of course, what happens in one part of let's say of the media universe, or just of our society, is going to have an impact on everything else. It seems to be part of a general ramping up. And so,
so it starts at universities, and before you know it, it could be clamping down everywhere. Is there any real distinction between Jews and Zionists? Because a lot of times when you think of anti-Semitism, it's some people that just hate Jews because they're Jews, and I think the majority, we don't have that type of problem here in America. People may want to think that we do, but really clearly we have a problem with the Israeli government, the Zionist regime. Before October 7th, nobody was going on and rioting in the streets and complaining about Jews.
It's because of the actions of the Israeli state.
It's clearly a response to what Israel's doing is why we have these protests. So if I use...
And the support that the U.S. government and these university administrations have been giving them.
And we're funding, a mass murder or, genocide. Actually, I want to ask you about that in a minute, but I know I just lost my train of thought. Hold on, sorry. Okay, well, I'll go on to my new train of thought that I
Okay.
got into. Sometimes people think a little bit obsessed with the word genocide. Would you say that what's happening in Gaza, can we actually define that as genocide, or are we just delving into semantics and we
Right.
shouldn't really care and just talk
Yeah,
about it as
well,
mass
I think there's
murder?
no question that that word is overused. But I think this is probably one case in which it's being used appropriately. Um, there because it seems clear, both by from the actions of the Israeli military and statements by Israeli government officials that there is a genocidal intent and genocidal policy. We've talked about the Lavender program. That was
Mm.
genocidal. I mean, a very large proportion of the population was had a target, put on their backs, and then look, I mean, the just entire cities have been just utterly destroyed, and the people driven from them, and
Mm.
we have tens of thousands of deaths, but it may be much higher, and there's a potential for it going much higher than that. And then on top of that, there's just there clearly is an effort, a desire to drive the survivors of this genocidal attack into out of Gaza permanently.
Mm.
It's clear that that's what the Israeli government wishes to do, and that does that meets the criteria of genocide. One thing is not necessarily killing every last person in the race, but just kind of eliminating these people as a people, just driving them out from their homeland, destroying all their institutions, so that they cease to exist as a people. Though there may be individual survivors.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes I feel like people get caught up and be like, "Oh, it's not really a genocide. Only 50,000 died," or which is horrible as it is in
Right.
small area. And some people will bring up like other conflicts, like, "Well, a million people died in Syria. We didn't call that a genocide. Millions died in the Congo. We didn't call that a genocide." How would you respond to something like that? Like with these other conflicts? Because I see,
Hmm.
Zionists online where to be like,
Right.
this is just more proof that people are just focusing on Israel, and when Israel does
No,
something, the
they're
Jews do something
right.
wrong, then it's a
Right.
genocide. Right.
Yeah. Well, the problem is again that you have people like Netanyahu himself, Gavir, and other government officials basically stating that that's their intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Amalek quote from
Right.
Netanyahu.
Right.
Right.
Videos of rabbis telling
Right.
people
I
to
mean,
kill
there's true. There,
children.
are, it is fair to draw comparisons to other wars that have been bloody, very costly. Um, the Iraq War led to 1 million deaths. Many of them indirect. That's horrible. This is a horrible thing, and a stain on the, on the the reputation of the United States. But you don't find any evidence that there was an intention to kill the Iraqi,
Mm.
destroy the Iraqi people, to
Right.
eliminate them as a people.
That's true. You don't have
Right.
the people in America being like, "Yes, we got to get rid of all of them," rooting.
Yeah. Again, exactly. I mean, these wars can be terrible, and I
Right.
think, in fact, there should be more awareness of how awful the Iraq War was and the Syrian War. So they're right to point it out, but it doesn't absolve them of any guilt. I mean, this is they're just beginning, and there is something that's particularly genocidal about this war.
Right. Just listen to the rhetoric
Right.
of the
They
state.
are trying to there's just a clear intention of dehumanizing this entire population, regarding this subhuman, and it's talking about just killing them all.
Okay. I remember what I was trying to talk about earlier was just drawing the comparison, or the problem of conflating Judaism with Zionism. Like, if we start using the term Zionist all the time, if I'm
Right.
against Zionism, does that make me anti-Semitic? If you are a Jewish person that is speaking out against the state of Israel, because that's what a lot of these protests on these campuses are. The mainstream media doesn't want to point it out, but a lot of these are led by Jewish students.
Right,
These are
right.
Jews, and
Right.
they're being labeled. Will they be labeled as anti-Semitic? Could they
Well,
actually?
it's actually okay. Here's one of here's an example of part of the working definition of anti-Semitism. According to the IHRA, denying the Jewish people the right to self-determination. For example, by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Actually,
Well, it is.
right.
It
Exactly.
clearly
That's the
is.
thing. That's being anti-Zionist, is saying that, like just the other day, I heard Chas Freeman saying that he realized that this whole thing was a racist endeavor,
Mm.
because the problem is, the state of Israel was created by emptying the land, of the original inhabitants, the Nakba,
Mm.
right? The catastrophe that the Arab residents of that land suffered. And so, yeah, you could say, the Zionism, the creation of the state of Israel was racist, at its core, and Zionism is. That's anti-Zionism. You can have, you're making no statement about Judaism or, the Jewish people.
Mm.
But yeah, according to the IHRA and the definition that we're using, if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Semitic.
If you never use the term Jew or Jewish, and you always use the terms Israel, Israeli, and Zionism, would that protect you, absolve you a bit?
No. Clearly, it doesn't, because there are just countless examples that people have run into trouble, including these students.
And even if they're Jewish, they
right,
get labeled
exactly.
so they can be in trouble for being anti-Semitic, right. Even if they're Jews themselves,
right.
saying they disagree with the policy of Israel. And it's it's so strange. So that means basically anything that Israel does, if you criticize it, you're anti-Semitic. Is that basically what this rule is?
It basically is. In practice, that's, you can just look at the statements of our congressman or the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, and he's conflating clearly, criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and then therefore taking the next step and drawing, parallels between Nazi brown shirts and the protesters on campus now.
Mm. But I'm still a little confused exactly what this bill does, because you said it just puts pressure. Does it go through?
Well, it's hard to say if you go through it. You read through it, it doesn't really seem to do anything. It doesn't add, but it just kind of reminds of the
administration.
It's just and the university administrations around the country that part of what they're supposed to oversee. There is this we have a civil rights regulator, which is the I guess it's just the Office of Civil Rights, that oversees these issues throughout society, but particularly on campuses. And any institution that depends on federal funding has to make sure that they're checking the boxes, and they got to prove that they're not practicing racism, but even allowing racism. And then this is extended to anti-Semitism. And this already was extended to anti-Semitism, but this simply is a reminder. I think, again, it's more political than anything else. It's just it's a warning to all these university administrators. So yeah, they're probably every single one of these administrators is living in fear of being hauled before some congressional committee, or getting a knock on the door from our civil rights agencies of one or another.
So
there could be huge liability. I mean, they can bring lawsuits against these. They can deprive them of funds, but they can also subject them to lawsuits. And that's exactly the sort of thing that a university president does not want to see happen.
That's what the Jews are good at too. Lawsuits. No, just kidding. So what do you think will be the backlash from this? Do you think this is going to end up kind of backfiring on the Israeli sort of lobby, or who's behind this really? Is it directly Israel that's behind the pushing of this bill?
Well, you have to say that in part it is. I mean, it's just because, of course, like this came out, or the crackdowns happened like the day after Netanyahu went on his rant about, this is the Germany in the 1930s all over again. And there are direct ties. It was Max Blumenthal that was pointing out that the New York Police Department, which recently cracked down on the demonstrators at Columbia. They have very close ties to the Israeli state.
They have an office in Tel Aviv.
Right. They actually have
New York Police Department in Tel Aviv.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then there's also a professor there who was in that office, and she's a professor on at the faculty of Columbia. And when Mayor Adams gave his recent speech condemning the anti-Semitic protesters, she was right there behind him, standing behind him. She's somebody that has been instrumental in all this. And so there are direct ties, faculty and to Israel, and the New York Police Department to Israel. And
so, is this just a very clear example of the Israeli lobby at work? They basically turn their screws on all of our politicians that have funding and say, like, "Hey guys, we got to push this."
Well, it's kind of hard not to say that. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, this is not. Yeah.
It's I think the craziness of it is that how open Israel is about this.
Right.
What's trending on Twitter now is the United States of Israel. People are seeing this, and it's becoming more and more apparent. And to me as well, just like, my God, the fact that they can do this so quickly and so openly, that a foreign leader could come and tell us to suppress free speech on campuses, and we just immediately jump to and do it.
No, it's right. It's shameful too. I mean, this is supposed to even so-called MAGA supporters are doing this. But as many people point out, it's not about making America great. It's about making Israel great, putting Israel ahead. I mean, quite literally. Like, for example, you can get into serious trouble, on a U.S. university campus for calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. That clearly would be anti-Semitic according to the definition that they're using. But you can, I think it was actually a congressman even recently admitted to this. You could call for the destruction of the United States of America and not get in trouble.
Right.
I mean, so what's going on?
That's supposed to be our right. That's what free speech is all about, is you can say things that people find abhorrent. That's your right. And people can not like you for it.
Right.
But as an American, you're allowed to say whatever you want, as long as you're not hurting somebody, physically, directly, or calling for direct calls of violence to a person. So it's just so crazy that this idea is being just tossed out the window so quickly.
Yeah.
But do you think, and also the other part is that both sides, the left and the right, are beholden and are going along with this. Right. And so there's really nobody really out there to protect the normal, regular citizen, because all of our elite, our leaders, our politicians seem to be just in the pocket of Israel. So
there's some dissent, but
we said 90 out of 200 and
90 out of 300.
300, 90 out of 300, right? So
there is some dissent, but not nearly enough. It's really a disgraceful episode.
So does this bill go? I don't understand how laws fully work. So this is this bill passed. Does it go to the Senate and it gets codified? Like, how does this work?
My understanding that's right, that it has to. Yeah. Again, it really doesn't make any specific changes to the law. It's more,
shining a spotlight, but it also kind of. But it provides this large definition of what anti-Semitism is, which basically
it just reinforces it, and then it's just like, it's basically, again, it's just a statement to everybody. Hey, you better watch it. University administrations, this is what we're focusing on, and you better, and they learn from, there's no way that they've learned, from the past that if you try to argue things strictly, you say, well, this is not exactly anti-Semitic, because, he's just pointing out a few facts or whatever. That's just not going to hold water. When you haul before these congressional committees or whatever, or you have a regulator, breathing down your back, they're not going to, that's not going to work. You're going to have to do things, take decisive public action to show that you're on the right side of history, so to speak.
But that's that's illegal, right? That's unconstitutional.
Yeah, but that's how it works. I mean, it's been true with, so-called anti-racism efforts too.
Right, but no law was actually broken, right? Like something like a hate crime, it's like, okay, it gets tacked on because you committed some type of action, and they say it's because you hated this person because of their sex.
Yeah, well, again, like in this case, it's not that, okay, the student gets arrested. Well, not directly. I mean, it's according to this new law. It's just that, okay, the university administration, it feels the pressure, to turn the screws more tightly on the demonstrators. So they're more likely to call in the police and get you arrested, or they're more likely to punish you directly by, expelling you, or, you know, um, take whatever, disciplinary measures are at their disposal. Yeah, but the consequences will be real for students.
Yeah. Oh, do you think that the students are going to start to double down and this is going to backfire? That's what I
I
was
think
kind of
there's a
asking
real
earlier.
chance of it. I mean, it's just so.
It's so obvious.
Yeah,
That
right. Well, that's the thing. It's just in a lot of ways. It's just, this crackdown on anti-Semitism and the obvious, bad faith behind the use of the kind of the anti-Semitism excuse for all kinds of bad policy and bad laws. It's just, so it's become increasingly brazen and obvious to anybody who's paying attention. And I guess that's the brazenness is the result of just sort of the fact that they really have had their way for decades. There was a time in America when people were afraid of being, like a Jewish person would be afraid of being accused of dual loyalty. Certainly in the 50s, and I think probably through the early 60s, and beyond. But that's no longer a fear. And again, actually, this working definition is pointing out, saying somebody maybe is more loyal to the state of Israel than he is to the U.S. That too is anti-Semitic, but it may be a fact. Well, he is.
Right.
So why can't we point this out?
You can say death to America in America, but you can't say death to Israel.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think it's just that again, it's sort of like the just as Israel itself is becoming increasingly reckless and increasingly open about what it's doing, it's because, it's been coddled so long. It just has this sense of impunity. It's always been backed up, no matter what it does, backed up by the United States. But it's also true of these various, Zionist organizations like AIPAC and ADL. And, so they don't really even hide it anymore. We're just being open. Yeah, Israel's first. Shut up, or you're an anti-Semite.
So if I'm a college student and I hold up a sign that says "Death to Israel," let's say something like that, or like
and they're not even doing that.
Yeah, right. They're not even. They're just saying stop the genocide.
Right.
They don't. But let me say, I'm going just to play devil's advocate here. Just like if I'm going straight up and I have a sign "Death to Israel," what would happen to me as a student? And is there actually something on the books that would cause me to be expelled, or would I get arrested? Or because I'm still unclear what this is. Like you said, it's just kind of a broad definition, shine the spotlight. But
right.
What happens when students double down? Because I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to get angrier.
I think you certainly could be expelled. You probably would be. I mean, without any question about it.
What about death to America? Would you be expelled?
Probably not. No. I mean, seriously. You probably would not be arrested for doing that. That's the thing. It's just that, like, it is kind of, it's hard for the cops. There still is a First Amendment that they got to at least pretend to respect. So like in UCLA, what happened there, actually, the crackdown, the police ended up not doing much of anything because there were no obvious laws being broken there. But what happened is, in this case, we had a bunch of vigilantes, expat Israelis that came in and just started beating up the students,
Really?
Yeah. Shooting fireworks at them, hitting them with hammers and, lead pipes. Yeah.
Were any kids injured then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I've seen people, some really badly banged up,
Really?
And the students were so terrified of fighting back because they knew they'd be accused of violence that, a lot of them just took it. And the thing is that the police in this case, they just didn't do anything. So it was sort of a convenient solution. Say, okay, well, we can't crack down on them for a legal protest, but it's too bad there are these clashes going on. That's how they were describing the New York Times.
But I mean, if there are people assaulting people with metal pipes, you got to arrest the people.
Yeah, well, that's right. Normally, that's what you do. But it was just a failure in this case for the police to act that allowed this demonstration to be suppressed. So it can take different forms. They can. Again, that's outrageous.
Does Israel have control over our police departments? I mean, if the New York Police Department has an office in Tel Aviv,
right. Well, they have worked at. This is something I read about years ago. Is that they have worked at building relationships with police departments across the country, unfortunately, we have a lot of people that have always looked to seen the Israelis as being sort of a model. These are the guys who know how to deal with
Yeah.
malefactors, with
They know how to
agents of chaos or whatever whatever with demonstrators with all the kind of people that we hate. They don't understand what's going on, but this is the view that they have. And so a lot of these departments have had programs. In some cases, they make visits to Israel. Other times, you have Israeli representatives from the IDF come and teach them certain things. Again, we shouldn't have military involvement in the police. Police activity should be kept separate from from military. Those are very different mindsets. They have very different purposes. But our police departments have been corrupted. Not just by the IDF, but probably more obviously, more extensively by the U.S. military. We have a lot of these militarized units that, again, tend to view citizens as the enemy rather than as a population to protect.
Scary. So where do you see this all leading then? Where does this go? How scary is this? Is this just kind of nothing, and we can still say?
Well, it is no. I don't think it's nothing. Yeah, it's not nothing. I don't know. I mean, it is hard if you're a student and you're vulnerable. You have
your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You have your life ahead of you, and then you have not just the the fact that you might be expelled from school, but law firms stating that they're not going to hire students that have taken part in these protests. That's going to put right. That's very intimidating. Let's be honest. And some of these students, I think, are going to stick with it, but others are going to give up. It's just who knows. I mean, the thing is they're up against a lot. Back in the 1960s, it was somewhat of a different situation. Yeah, I mean, they were protesting, let's say, an unjust war, a war that was really turning into disaster. But they also had an incentive to do, and that is that there was the fear of the draft over their heads. Mm-hmm. They could be drafted and sent. This is right. Yeah. So in this case, right. So they didn't. They had kind of in their own interest. It was in their own interest to protest. This is not so much not true of these students. I mean, it really is just horror at the genocide, and so we'll see. I wouldn't judge them too harshly if a lot of them decided, I just don't want to get involved. It's just, but
have these protests spread outside of just college campuses and universities? Are we seeing demonstrations amongst just the general public?
I haven't. Well, I know there certainly are. I know,
in San Francisco, right, New York, there's going to be big cities.
There are. Yeah, there certainly have been demonstrations and fairly significant ones.
Do you think it's going to start to grow out of the campus and into these major cities? And will we see the same type of crackdown that we saw on campuses if it starts to spread?
There's certainly a potential for it. Yeah,
that's when it starts to get a little bit more real, because it's right now on the college universities and campuses, its own little ecosystem. People can just see it on their televisions. But once it starts marching down your own street, then I think it's going to wake up a lot of people. And
I just don't know how far it's going to go. But I mean, look, it's because it's not, again, the ADL and all these, and Fox News and so on and so forth, just have you think that it's just anti-Semitism that's driving this, that there's just this kind of latent Jew hatred that's just reared its ugly head again. And that's just nonsense. It's the actions of of Israel in Gaza. It's just the horrors that they are perpetrating there, and people have seen it and they just can't take it anymore. Right. And then now we're looking at the an imminent invasion of Gaza that promises to just to double the casualties very quickly. There's 1.25 million people concentrated in a very small area. Refugees from Israeli actions everywhere, and now everywhere else in Gaza. And so it could just become a lot worse, and that just it seems inevitably it's just going to lead to more demonstrations. Right, more people are just saying, forget it. I just can't have it.
After this Rafah invasion, and we see this crackdown, this anti-Semitism bill go through, and then what they do in Rafah, if they end up carpet bombing it and killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, I think they're going to have a mess on their hands. More and more people are going to wake up, and then it'll be so crazy. These people that start to speak out against it, be like, I just saw videos of hundreds of bloody dead children, you know, and I don't like that. I want to say something against it. Someone calls you anti-Semitic.
Right.
That the response is going to be like, are you crazy?
Right.
I don't have anything against Jews. I have something against all these dead children. Just why can't we stop that? That's the problem. And so I think this is going to end up backfiring a lot on Israel and on just sort of the grip of the Jewish lobby, Israeli lobby here in the United States. It will just become so exposed. People will be like, hey, we don't care about if you're Jewish. We love Jews in America. We just don't like what the state of Israel is doing in Gaza.
Well, you know, again, it's in the end, it's a self-destructive path that both Israel and, let's say, the Jewish Zionist lobby is going down right now, because the policy of, let's say, genocide on one hand, and then suppressing people who criticize and accusing them of anti-Semitism, and then insisting that this is all anti-Jewish. No, if you do want to create real hostility towards Jews, you couldn't come up with like a better plan.
Right. This is the way to get people to hate Jews.
Yes, so really, I mean, it's just.
Right. I mean, we keep on saying the leading cause of anti-Semitism is the genocide in Gaza.
Right.
Before October 7th, before this, what Israel started doing in Gaza and the West Bank, there was no problem. There wasn't a rampant anti-Semitism problem, and there isn't one now.
Right.
There is a genocide problem. Right. And it's the
in the end, I would say, I would say actually there was an anti-Semitism problem. There was a
lack.
It was kind of the reverse. There was a philo-Semitism problem. There was an excessive love of the Jews. It's just sort of that distorted our policies. Again, we were giving Israel and the Jewish people this special status that shouldn't have been given.
Right, we're all equals. We're all Americans.
Yeah,
right. That's
a license to kill, a license now to we're going to upend the First Amendment for you and whatever. A lot of people would say that wait a second. Again, it is being. Let's be honest. It is being done for the Jews, and yes, we also be honest. There are very brave, Jewish dissidents that are calling that out and saying, "Not in my name, no way." But it is being done in the name of the Jews, and that's if you are really concerned about the safety of the Jewish people, this is not the policy you should be pursuing. Again, it's just because it's so blatantly dishonest, and anybody with eyes to see what this.
Right.
Through this.
I mean, it's just so clear that you cannot have protected classes in a true democracy. I mean, if you want to talk about the United States was supposed to be the idea of equal opportunity, there's no protected classes. You can't say that if you say something against, Black people or Jews, that's not okay, but you can say them against one group or the other. It's just so clearly that you can't have that rule. They're bad people. There's going to always be racist. There's always going to be people that are anti-Semitic. Right. You just deal with it. And you combat bad speech with better speech, good speech. You don't suppress it.
And then also, I mean, it's just like, let's be honest, most people aren't really all that careful with their speech. And they're, it's just that, it's like, I'll just say this, like some of my very good friends, I think sometimes will say something, it's not exactly true. You just took this a little bit too far, but whatever. But that's the way people talk.
Right.
And we just don't have to be, policing it all the time. And then,
well, also stereotypes are funny.
Yeah. Right.
It's like when you make jokes.
And they are also, the fact is they're also based on truth, real stereotypes, the ones that are funny, because we all know there's a lot of truth to them.
Right. And if you have a good friend that's of a different race or different, that the best jokes are the ones when you make fun of him because of who he is. If he has a different religion or a different race, I have friends from all over the world, and I love making fun of them for being, I don't know, French or from Peru or wherever. I love, and they love it too, and they give me a hard time for
Right. Well, exactly. Actually, and it's the same thing like between whites and blacks when there's a real friendships, they're going to be racist jokes going back and forth, and they're laughing at each other, or whatever. And then when you have this, this policing of the language, oh no, you can't say that, you can't. that's people become nervous.
Yeah,
and actually then they're afraid to have a friend who's like on the other side of the divide.
Right. It actually is creating this divide.
It's like, okay, I just pretend to be a friend, but I can't be a real friend. We can't be, open and honest and have give and take and whatever.
Right.
So I think it just in general, you just have to drop the whole notion of anti-Semitism. The only kind of anti-Semitism that should really matter is when you're really calling for violence and violence is really happening. Like we're just randomly, shooting down Jews in the street and people are supporting that. Yeah, that's wrong. And that's not what's happening. It's just not anywhere close to it. It's just like, so.
Yeah, well,
it's just, that the people that are being shot down for being who they are Palestinians.
Right, right.
Let's be honest.
Right. Yeah, it's wild. Okay, well, maybe we can change topics real quick. You were saying earlier you wanted to mention something about the Patriot Missile system.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. Because last time, we were talking about that, and you said there was some kind of connection between the Patriot system and the Iron Dome. I had heard that. Well, I looked into it. There's a connection, but it's really very not very important. It's just that Raytheon is involved in the production of both of them. That's about it. But essentially, they're very different systems. The Iron Dome focuses on small rockets and missiles that are launched that travel at low altitudes and from nearby, like from right across the border, from, let's say, from southern Lebanon or from Gaza. In particular, Qassam rockets. Those are the rockets. They're basically homemade rockets. I mean, like we probably can make one this month if we set our minds to it.
Really?
It's just a metal
Should
tube.
We try?
Yeah, well, maybe. It's basically a metal tube and fuel made from like fertilizer and bleach or something, and they're maybe 6 feet long, 7 feet long, and they're just you lean it against a tripod and light the fuse and off it goes. I mean that's a Qassam rocket, but
it's a big firework, basically.
Yeah, and that's but it can kill a person or whatever. The Iron Dome is designed to knock those out of the sky, and then also Katyusha rockets, which are what Hezbollah has in southern Lebanon. And what that refers to is the Katyusha rocket launcher was something used by the Soviets in World War II. And then there's some later versions and then derivatives of this. And it's something that's still used, but it's really at the very low end of missile technology. I mean, they travel maybe, 5 to 10 miles. And so it's more than a Qassam rocket, but not a whole lot more. And again, the Iron Dome was designed, to deal with these threats, again, from regions nearby. And the Patriot system is obviously something very different, but they can also apparently shoot down drones. So, I was mentioning that there wasn't any evidence that again, Theodore Postal could find of anything being shot down by an Iron Dome interceptor. And by the way, each one of these interceptors costs $100,000. So that's, cheaper, but we're talking $100,000 knocking down like a $50, Qassam rocket.
Right. Made out of fertilizer.
Right.
Pipes.
Right. Exactly. So, when you're saying that it hadn't shot anything down, he must have been referring to the drones, because that would be the only thing that it could have shot down. And apparently all the, according to the video footage that he looked at, all the drones were shot down by air-to-air missiles.
And Theodore Postal, he's an MIT professor who's a lead in missile technology.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's still very interesting that I still find it fascinating that Israel announced that they're retiring, decommissioning, mothballing their 8 Patriot systems. And, why make an announcement of that? They weren't, apparently they did use some Patriot systems in the, during the recent retaliatory strike by Iran, and another American system that was ship-based. But they said that ship-based system only knocked down 2 out of 8. They claimed that their own systems, which would be the David Sling and the Arrow, shot down 90%. And, maybe that's true, but I think we have to take that with a big grain of salt, because both the U.S. and Israel has a history of lying about the effectiveness of their systems. Like back during the first Gulf War in 1991, like initially the Israelis said, "Oh, nobody's been injured" or whatever. Later, it turned out that like 41 civilians were killed by Scud missiles launched from Iraq. And then the Americans claimed that they had shot down like 100% of the missiles, which it was just absurd. Like later analysis that came out, it was that at the most 10% were shot down, maybe none. So, I mean, really, it was a total failure. But we lied about it, and the Israelis lied about it too. And you know, again, you see they have an incentive to lie about it. And it looks like in this case, it may be that they're kind of like trying to shift the blame onto the U.S. and claiming that their own system's great and.
So that's
but even their own, yeah.
So that's what you assume. So what is it?
But another interesting thing is that at the same time we have Ukraine demanding these Patriot systems, and they have 8 of them. So why they're announcing that they're mothballing.
They're going to move them to Ukraine.
Well, there's I looked at this report from an Israeli paper, and they said, well, no, they're apparently not, or at least that's the initial report. And I think it's because they are worried about angering the Russians. I mean, like relations between Russia and Israel have certainly taken a dive, have certainly deteriorated since October 7th. But maybe they don't want them to get any worse, because Russia has a presence in Syria, for example. And if Israel becomes directly more involved, they're already supporting the Ukraine side. But if they could give the 8 systems, that could anger the Russians more to the point where they're more willing to use their own systems against Israeli aircraft in Syria. And
so these 8 Patriot systems are just going to sit and collect dust.
That's what they're saying now. We'll see. Maybe there'll be a change. Maybe they'll be sent surreptitiously to Ukraine or something. But that's what they're saying now.
Yeah. Speaking about Syria, did you just see that Israel struck another building in Damascus?
Yeah.
Is this just another sort of normal?
This has been happening for years. So it's horrible. They're just constantly attacking Syria, and then the Europeans, the U.S. never say anything about it. It's like Israel has, again, like no other country in the world has a right to simply just,
So do you think there's going to be any response to this attack, or it's not?
Probably not. I mean, it's just part of what happens like every month for what's been happening for years and years.
Just every month. So you live in a city, and every month a building gets blown up by Israel while you're in the city. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Why, if Russia is involved in Syria and Russia has the best air defense systems in the world, then why doesn't Russia give some of its air defense to Syria to say?
Well, I guess because
they would actually be shooting down Israeli planes, and that's a problem.
Okay, well, that's the problem. I think that's it. It's just like they've kind of drawn the line and said we don't want to have direct war with Israel. And so they do have, like, I know the Syrians have S-300s, and they have used them with some effect against missiles that have come. But I think, like, the best way to eliminate this threat is actually shoot down the F-35s that are firing these missiles from, from right across the border. And, well, it may be, again, the reason it's just the Russians have so far, just have limited the use of their air defense systems.
Do you think that would change?
It's trying to avoid direct war with Israel, but it could change. And maybe, again, it's just that Israel realizes that maybe they don't want to cross that red line.
And that's why maybe they don't want to get the Patriot systems to
exactly.
Ukraine. So, but there is that possibility that Russia could be like, look, you try to attack Iran, you try to attack Syria, we will come to the defense. We'll give, maybe not directly come to the defense, but we will give them equipment to defend themselves.
Right.
And the United States...
And we'll limit the constraints that we put on them, that...
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I almost feel like the only way for Israel to stop is for a true force to come and kind of whip them into shape. That's the only thing. Because they've shown that you can't, nothing else works. They're not willing to talk or listen, negotiate.
Yeah. Well, they don't have any need. They just say they don't think they have any need to.
So do you think there will be one of these giant powers like China or Russia that will just eventually put its foot down and be like, enough is enough? We're not going to allow this anymore. Is that possible?
I don't see that happening. I mean,
or Iran. I mean,
Iran is Iran would be the one that might do it,
and then
like the Houthis already have, and the Houthis actually have scored a victory. This Operation Prosperity Guardian, right. Essentially, it's over. The U.S. failed, right. So Yeah, the Houthis are still imposing this blockade, and they've demonstrated that they can continue to, punish Israeli-linked and Western-linked ships that are passing through the Red Sea. And then, another change is Turkey has now ended all trade with Israel.
I
Turkey,
saw that.
right?
Yeah.
They were. A lot of people were very critical of Erdogan, is making these fiery speeches but continuing to do business with Israel. But apparently, first, I guess they stopped supplying like direct military technology. And then there were certain sanctions, I think, that were imposed about a month ago. And then just the other day, he said that we're cutting off all trade. So that's a sign that some of these surrounding states are, becoming increasingly hostile. And yeah, there may be a breaking point, like maybe Rafah, where some states like Hezbollah. Again, we have Hezbollah. We're not a state; they're a quasi-state. Turkey, Iran could possibly, just say that okay, enough is enough. I think again they're very reluctant to, because again, Israel, they've got nuclear weapons. They're crazy. And it could be the end of your country. So, of course, they're going to be very reluctant to.
Right. But once one person switches over and, it's okay, and they see the support within their own country, I think others will begin to follow suit. Right.
Well, I mean, I think it's just more likely, again, is that Israel is going to strike first, and in a way that where the other countries, feels that they simply have to respond. And then,
when you say strike first, where strike where?
Right. Well,
Syria.
Yeah. Well, Syria again. It would be against Iranian targets.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They want this war with Iran, but with the U.S. involved. And I think they're banking that no matter what the U.S. says now, if they actually go to war with Iran, the U.S. will come in on their side. And the same thing they're hoping in the case of Hezbollah.
So we're still just waiting for Israel to do something to start this broader war and bring in the United States.
Yeah,
we're sitting around waiting for that.
That's right.
The other thing we're just sitting around waiting for is for Israel to invade Rafah and raise it to the ground.
Right.
It's so crazy. We're just sitting around waiting for these cataclysmic events to happen that will cause the immediate deaths of tens of thousands of people, probably in Rafah, and potentially draw us into a huge, larger conflict that will just sink the United States. I just don't understand why we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs until Israel does one of these things. And it's going to do both of them.
Right.
And we're just waiting for it to happen. And we're going to react to it.
Right. Well, even the U.S. understands like the Rafah thing is a bad idea.
But
that's right.
We don't give any red lines.
We just can't.
We're just sitting
and
around.
And they know it. And it's just like Netanyahu's called it.
Right. And you just think about it, like if you're Biden, it's like, okay, I'm just going to sit around here and wait until Netanyahu invades. And then I'm going to have riots in my street.
Right.
Because I'm allowing this guy to commit mass murder on a huge scale that is incredibly televised. The whole world's got their, the telescopes right on Gaza, on Rafah.
Right.
What? It's just so stupid. What are they doing?
Yeah. Well, it is stupid. I mean, and they know they just can't say no to Israel. That's a problem, and they can't say no to those donors and it's just everything.
Somebody
it's just
trying to tell Israel like this is going to be the end of yourselves for your own self-preservation, for the love of God. Just you have a great prosperous nation before. Just try to give the the Palestinians some of their land. Let them stay on their land and quit taking their land and killing them, and we could end this. That doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. So we're going to sit here and just wait for more death and destruction, and then the United States to get dragged in. It's crazy. It's just so crazy because it's
we haven't done anything to. I mean, there was we came awfully close with the recent retaliatory strike by Iran, but that did not end the crisis. It just it just delayed. The fundamentals have not changed, and the desire on the part of Netanyahu and others, to have war with Iran is still there, and there's no reason to think that they're not gonna try this again.
It's just the whole thing is just so ridiculous. What's happening? Like it's not like this is a natural disaster in Gaza.
Right,
people are starving to death, and we can't get them food.
Right.
You know, people are
Yeah, well,
in
this
mass
is
starvation.
right. This ridiculous thing about this floating dock or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
So
Yeah.
bizarre. And you say, well, yeah, well, why can't you just make these really, actually open the border crossings?
Right, to allow aid in. Now we're
right.
spending hundreds of millions of
Right.
dollars
The whole
building
thing's-
a floating port. It's like, just open the gates so the trucks can come in.
Right. I know.
And at the same time, we're spending all this money financing humanitarian relief and aid, but at the same time giving billions of dollars.
Well, no, actually, we cut off UNRWA, UNRWA, which is the main distributor, really the only agency capable of really efficiently.
Right, but I meant like building the dock is supposed to be what the Biden administration will be like. This is a way that we can, help the Palestinians and keep on giving them aid.
Yeah, it doesn't make a bit of sense to me.
And then at the same time, we're just dropping off billions of dollars worth of bombs. We just gave $26 billion to their military.
The only thing that could maybe limit our support is actually our own inability to produce enough bombs and munitions, because it's the same thing. It's just that we've given so much to Ukraine already that apparently our stockpiles are down to a minimum, even below what was considered the minimum. Our inventories have been severely depleted.
Sounds like the perfect time to start a war with China.
Right.
Let's go for it.
That may be the only break that's put on all this. It's just our inability to produce enough bombs to keep up with this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should stop here. I'm getting riled up. We'll end it. Okay. Thanks a lot, Dad.